I just started fifth grade, PS90 in Queens, and we had a new student come in that school year in September from India. He was Punjabi, he was Sikh. Immediately after 9/11 happened, the student from India was being beat up. He was being bullied. He was being
That's terrible.
attacked. They were throwing stuff at him. They like unraveled his turban. They were calling him Taliban. They were like pulling his hair. It was horrible. And that was actually one of my first fights as a kid, was defending him and fighting
Nice.
alongside him.
Mira que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, viva la revolución.
Just wanted to give some background on my experience with 9/11 and how it brought me to socialism and communism. And I think that this may sound kind of controversial, but I'll say it anyway because it's related to how I got politicized. I think that obviously, while conspiracy theories are dangerous, and a lot of times we have to be careful with the conspiracy theories being put out there, in a lot of ways, the conspiracy movement around September 11th brought me to socialism and communism, because seeing 9/11, when I saw that, I remember being a kid, I was in fifth grade. I went to PS90 in Queens, and I remember hearing over the loudspeaker, the World Trade Center has been bombed. Everybody needs to go home. I saw the towers smoking from the rooftop of our school.
Wow.
And it was crazy. It was a very crazy event. My dad worked in Lower East Side at the time, which is not too far from the World Trade Center. Lower East Side is on the eastern side. World Trade Center is the southwest part of Manhattan. And I wasn't able to hear from my dad for hours. You know, the telephone lines all went out, and I knew he worked in downtown Manhattan, so I was kind of freaking out. But by like 8 or 9 p.m. at night, he came home covered in dust and in smoke. I was just happy that he was alive. And there was an anxiety that a lot of young people had at the time, worrying about their parents if they made it. And then after that, I remember something, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember one of the B-roll footage. B-roll is like background images that they put during newscasts. One of the B-roll that I explicitly remember, because at that time I was obsessed with like flags and maps and just like learning about the world, because I just found, so I was like, okay, so then one of the B-roll images that they showed was a celebration, like these women in hijabs and like Muslim men who were dancing and parading in the street. And I was like, they were waving the Palestinian flag. And that was really interesting. I was like, that's interesting that they're showing CNN, Fox, they were showing the Palestinian flag, people dancing and celebrating with the Palestinian flag. And they were saying, you know, people in the Middle East, responses, reactions. And it turns out that footage was from like a Palestinian protest that was not even related to September 11th.
Wow.
They weren't saying like, these are people celebrating 9/11, but just the words that they were using. And like, I think they were reading off reaction statements from like people in the Middle East. And the B-roll they were showing was Palestinians dancing and celebrating with the Palestinian flag. Immediately, I looked up the flag because I had never seen it before. It's like, Palestine, that's interesting. Okay. And that got me thinking later on, like, why would they show images of Palestinians celebrating and dancing for something that had nothing to do with them at all? And at that moment, I knew I couldn't trust the news. I couldn't trust Fox News. I couldn't trust, because then 2 years later, we saw the bombing of Iraq and the invasion of Iraq, and they were celebrating it, you know, the Western imperialist media. So that got me into that, thinking about, wow, like 9/11, 9/11, like how did it benefit the empire, you know? And I remember seeing the stickers, no blood for oil, and then Zeitgeist came out, and then, you know, so it, like, I think a lot of people, like, that eventually led me to understand, like, we're not in the Middle East because of some secret logo high up in the sky, and some secret society of baby blood drinkers that, you know, obviously, like, I'm past that. But
Right.
I feel like so many people on the left, unfortunately, especially for me, like I'm a working class dude from the hood. Like I'm not educated. I'm not, I'm from an immigrant household from Queens. I got a lot of people that I knew growing up became anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist through conspiracy theories, through
Mm.
these like random, you go to the hoods of New York, to the hoods of LA, anywhere, and a lot of people think like that. They question it. And while their immediate conclusions are not necessarily politically correct, maybe they have some views that are not politically correct, they have the right mindset, which is questioning authority, questioning bourgeois media, because you go to a lot of bourgeois academic liberal circles and they buy everything that CNN
Yeah,
and NBC
hands
says.
down, man.
You know what I mean? So I feel like that, I just wanted to kind of point that out because 9/11 was one of the events that brought me to questioning media, questioning the empire, understanding what the empire was. And although I moved away from it, it was certainly a necessary path towards that. So I just feel like as communists, our approach toward conspiracy theorists has to be a little more nuanced than just
Yeah.
acting arrogant and just being like, oh, you guys are so dumb. And then one last thing I wanted to add on this point is in terms of my political consciousness, it also, as Danny said, there is no war without racism. That's exactly right. Because I remember that fifth grade that year, because the school year began like earlier that month, September 1st, September 2nd, September 11th was a week or two after that. I just started fifth grade, PS90 in Queens, and we had a new student come in that school year in September from India. He was Punjabi. He was Sikh from the area of Punjab, which is split between Pakistan and India, and he was Sikh. So his religion, and in Sikhism they wear the turban,
Yeah.
right? And the turban in mainstream media became associated with the Taliban because it happens that the many of the Taliban men also wear turbans, but for different reasons. And the Sikhs are not even Muslim; they're not even in the same religion. And immediately after 9/11 happened, the student from India was being beat up. He was being bullied. He was being
That's terrible.
attacked. They were throwing stuff at him. They like unraveled his turban. They were calling him Taliban. They were like pulling his hair. It was horrible. And that was actually one of my first fights as a kid, was defending him and fighting
Nice.
alongside him. And mind you, this wasn't even white kids. This was Black and Latino kids in my school. So it just shows you that like even within, it's not just white people doing it. It's Black and brown people can replicate racist chauvinism with the spells of mainstream media. And so they were attacking this poor kid, and that's when I was like, damn, like this. And I just talking to him, learning more about Punjabis and Sikhs in India. I was like, damn, like he has, his family has nothing to do with that, and this poor kid's being beat up just because some ignorant assholes think that he's in the Taliban. And so that was another moment of me recognizing internationalism, the need for people of all nations in the world to unite, to learn more, to get rid of ignorance, to take the time to study other people's cultures and to appreciate it, because that ignorance is exactly what leads us into wars where we dehumanize people and we just see them as the Taliban or as some entity propped up in media. And so I'm glad that Danny pointed that out, where he said there is no imperialist war without racism. And unfortunately, I think they're trying to ramp up that spell once again.